Great.
All right, welcome everyone. We have one of our authors, Florence Callender, here. And Florence, welcome.
Thank you, Kim. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey as an author?
Well, when I was 10 years old, I used to read all of the books in the library. Every Friday, my mom came home with three, four, or five books for me. When I was old enough, I joined the library. And the books that fascinated me most were always the autobiographies of authors. And so at 10, I decided I wanted to be an author. Of course, growing up in a little island, on a little island in the Caribbean, people would say to me, the adults would say to me, an author? How are you going to make a living off of that? How are you going to feed yourself with that? And so I gave up that dream for decades. And then back in, I believe it was 2007, I was in Bob Proctor's community and he had a collaborative book. And I decided, oh, forget about these people. I'm going to do what I wanted to do. And that was the first time that I actually wrote officially and became an author, contributing author in a book project. And I've been writing since and actually publishing my writing. I wrote before, but it was just little things for myself. But since then, I have been writing and publishing what I wrote.
Yeah, I love that. So, what inspired you to write your story and Revitalize for the Soul? And was there a defining moment or event that sparked the idea?
Yes, there was. So since I like writing, every opportunity I get to write, I do that. So when I got your invitation, I figured, okay, another call, another tap on the shoulder, another call from the universe, another responsibility, another appointment by God. And as I looked back on some of what I just said about my childhood hopes being dampened, I thought about, okay, which story would I include? And one of the things that affected me as an adult most was being silenced as a child. Hence, the episode about what actually caused me to stop speaking out loud that came to mind as a defining moment because I don't want another child to go through that. And I think the more people who realize, the more adults who realize that the words they speak have long-term effects, long-ranging effects on children. If I can stop one child from experiencing what I did, I would have, I would have succeeded in accomplishing my goal.
Yeah, I think we are our I know I am my worst judgment person. I judge myself so harshly. And I think that comes from our, our superiors when we're little, and we're so little, right? They don't realize the impact of those words, the one word that might impact us little people a lot, right? When we're that age. So yeah, and I think that that gets it really deep into your psyche. So it's really pivotal. So how did you develop the characters in your storyline, and did any part of the chapter surprise you as you wrote it?
Um, Not really, because it was actually something that happened to me. So what I thought about most was, adults usually tell children must be seen, not heard. I think that they say that so much to children, they internalize it. And their behavior towards children when they speak actually epitomizes that thought. Because essentially, I was told I'm a child, I should be seen, not heard, in different words. And so that stands out to me as something that I do my best not to say to children because they're just little people. They have the same emotions that adults have. They may not be able to articulate how they're feeling, how they're thinking, but the same things that go on inside of us go on inside of them. And
Mhm.
I want to respect children for being human, just as I wanted to be respected then.
Yeah. So what challenges did you face during the writing process, and how did you overcome them?
My biggest challenge really was deciding which story to write because I started thinking, okay, which story would be most impactful? Um, And then some of the stories, I just remembered bits and pieces. This one stood out. I remember the entire episode. So I figured, okay, this must be the one that I need to start with. And surprisingly, since I started writing that one, other stories have come up, other things that happened in my childhood. So I have notes and writings and snippets of other stories that I intend to develop later on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of every single author that participated now have other projects that came out of it because the framework itself is a system that, I just basically encouraged everyone to do, and everyone had their own need, right? Some people wanted more coaching around publishing, which you already have done a lot of publishing, so you didn't need as much of that. And there was some training that I did, and I also provided the publishing part of it, which is a lot of work, right, from some other venture. Like, that because that's how that, you publish books. It takes a lot of extra focus to get that framework done. And a lot of people didn't know how to publish their own book. But a lot of people that they're very interested in writing either memoirs or children's books. I think I heard you say that you were interested in doing more of that, as well as, writing your own book. And I just love to hear that, that kind of that spiral, that growth that everyone had from the experience. So how do you approach the creative process? And do you have any routines or rituals that help you write?
I don't really have any specific routines or rituals. What I have done is create a time for writing. Now, before you gave us suggestions on writing for 15 minutes every morning or every day, I had a ritual of writing every Saturday afternoon. So I would sit and write because I am a contributing author to a women's devotional book that comes out every year, the beginning of every year. And so that's when I write my articles. So I accumulate a whole lot of articles. So when the time comes, the deadline comes, I don't have to sit and say, okay, what am I writing about this year? I just pick two of the articles I already write. So I had a rhythm for writing already established. What you encouraged me to do is to take it off of just a once a week rhythm to an everyday thing. And I found that that really helps because then I stay in flow better for
Yeah,
longer.
and I appreciate that feedback. I when I cut technology out of my life for a year, I had put that in my regular routine, and that was many years ago. And the last couple years, I started to take all the writings that I've done and started to just put it into the format of publishing and in doing the editing and those kind of things that I know how to do. And I was able to publish over 15 books last year. People were like, wow, how did you do that? And it was all about accumulating all that writing, like you said, where you take your two articles that you probably have 50 of them or whatever, I don't know the count, that you've accumulated, and you can actually take that and form it into, several books, right? So it isn't rocket science. It's really a system, and it's taking your feelings every day and putting it into the system, which means the system is the 15 minutes or the whatever every daily routine you have in the afternoon or whenever you do it. And a lot of times there's ways to, you know, at least see how you feel, because I think people step over feelings. So I think that's really a big thing in our society right now. How do
Yes.
you and how do you handle, like right now we're going to have the Kindle is out. It's 99 cents, February 24th, and it's only going to be at that price for a little while, and we're encouraging everyone to buy the Kindle and write a review on Amazon. And that's really important because we want to make sure that your story is out there and it's being read. It's not just in a book, right? How do you handle feedback or criticism about your work, since we're going to be getting reviews?
I'm always looking for, I don't consider anything to be criticism. It's always feedback. And I think that I grow from feedback because that's how I get better. No one sees life like I do. We all have our different lenses on based on our experiences. So what I think is helpful for someone, if it is not, and I can add another dimension to my writing, I look forward to that and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So how has writing your chapter for Revitalize for the Soul changed or influenced you personally?
It awakened in me what something that had gone latent because I was into so many business trainings. I would write and my writing would just got put down there. So it was just a thing in a drawer. But now it has truly revitalized my writing life because I took out some manuscripts that I had and some drafts. So this year is going to be my year of publishing my solo books.
I
So
love
as
that.
you know, I already have a children's book
Hmm.
written and edited. So that needs to get an illustrator and be published. I have a devotional book, Wisdom for the Mom's Road. And I have some other um, books that I want to put out. So I have one for parents because, as you know, I work with parents of children with dyslexia or just learning difficulties. So I have a companion book that goes along with the children's book that is in draft form. I'm going to finish that. And then I have another one that I'm just beginning, which has to do with communication strategies for high-level entrepreneurs and executives, because miscommunication causes a lot of revenue loss and loss of retention, poor retention on jobs. So all of these things that were just lying latent in me somewhere are coming out because of the Revitalized book. And I am going to be writing this year.
I love that. I mean, I have published all those books and it sounds like you're going to do a lot this year. And what's come out of that is I do a lot of speaking engagements and I'm going to be going down to the Educators Association in Texas in February and they asked for 90 of my books to sell there. So that's really what it's all about is really getting people to read the books, but it is really also to help people get some more help because it's, they can work through the books themselves, which is great. And that's really my objective is just to get what I know on in the book so people can read it because it's only me. I am only one person and I can't do it all. But it's also that, if they're interested in coming on board in any way, to some of the programs that I have, that they know that I'm here and they know what I offer. Like
That's right.
so
That's
for
right.
the yeah, so in the next book we are doing Revitalize for the Soul Volume 2. So anyone out there that's interested, we're looking for authors to contribute. We're going to be publishing that in 2026. So you get to also get some of my coaching, some of my training, and also any support in the framework, the system to make sure that you keep moving forward instead of keeping it in the drawers, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And if I may say, Kim, your training and your coaching is just stellar. It's superb. You bring up things, your thinking is just so different, things that I never thought of, small ways to tweak and things to use from my life. I think anyone who wants to truly be a writer would benefit so much from your life experience and your expertise and your coaching.
oh, well, that's so kind of you. So what would you give to what advice would you give to aspiring authors in addition or those considering writing their first book? I know that you have many, so what would putting on your first book hat, what advice would you give to them?
I remember hearing a number of people say every one of us has at least one book in us.
Hmm.
And when we think we are finite beings, we can only be in one place at one time. When we write, the things that impact us, it's going to impact at least one other person. Everyone has influence over at least one other person. And just as I can only be in one place at a time, my books, my words, my thoughts can be in many places at one time. So numerous people can benefit from my experience. And I think that is the best thing that anyone who aspires to be a writer can keep in mind. You
Yeah.
have a story that's going to improve someone's life and you should tell it because you just never know how many people's lives are going to be made better because of your words.
Yeah, and your story is that big impact. I think it's going to be a very good story to read. So everyone, get the book and read Flo's story because it's going to make a big difference in your life. It's going to inspire you and maybe help you think a little differently. So, Flo, is there a final message you'd like to share with our readers today and audience?
Yes. My focus is always on the next generation because we are as parents or adults with children in our lives, we're always training the next generation. And people tend to think about training as, oh, I'm training my child. No, you're training a parent, you're training an adult, you're training an entrepreneur. And I want adults to think of children in that way, that they are preparing children, the next generation of leaders, and therefore we need to give them our best. We need to use what our life has taught us so that and give it to them, teach it to them so they are one step or maybe 10 steps ahead of us. Their lives can be improved and the world, the community in which they live and the world in general can be made better just because of the ripple effects of my words
Yeah, I
and
love
yours.
that. And that I think that's a legacy you and I have talked about leaving a legacy for our daughters, right? And also that in turn is the ripple effect of leaving the legacy for our young children. And um the the biggest thing that it is almost like it's kind of like when we train our dogs. We are being trained to train our dogs. It's not that our dogs are being trained by us when you go to classes, right? And that is really what it is because I think as parents, and I'm going to be frank here, it's hard to let go in our society these days. The way it used to be is I think I was 12 when I had my first babysitting job and I was already independent. And 20-year-olds are not independent anymore because parents aren't letting go like we were let go of. We were let go of at 12 or even younger. Well, even younger, we were out playing and doing things and exploring and, skinning our knee and getting up again, right? So I think that is so critical. I love that that's what you stand for. And I really appreciate you, Flo, being a part of this book. It's been amazing. It's been an inspirational venture, and I really appreciate you taking your time today to share a little bit more of you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate you.